Picture this, it is 11 o'clock at night. The house is completely quiet. You are exhausted from a relentless day, but instead of sleeping, you find yourself staring into the glow of the refrigerator. You are not physically hungry, you had dinner hours ago. Yet, there is this overwhelming, almost magnetic pull towards something salty, something sweet, or maybe both. A bag of chips, a pint of ice cream. We have all been there, and for decades we have been told that this moment, this late night craving, is a failure of willpower. We call it stress eating, we call it a lack of discipline.
But that narrative is completely wrong. It is actually a tragic misunderstanding of our own biology. When you are standing in front of that fridge, your brain is not failing you. It is actually trying to save you. What we casually dismiss as a craving is, in reality, a profound and ancient survival mechanism kicking into high gear. We are looking at a deeply complex chemical feedback loop involving stress hormones, metabolic distress, and neurotransmitters.
That completely shifts the paradigm. We are so used to judging ourselves for these impulses. But if I am hearing you correctly, we need to stop looking at cravings as psychological weaknesses and start viewing them as biological distress signals.
Exactly. To understand this, we have to travel back a few 100,000 years. The human brain, the exact same brain we have inside our skulls today, evolved in an environment of extreme scarcity. Out on the ancestral savanna, glucose and sodium were incredibly rare. They were not just treats, they were absolute biological gold. Glucose meant rapid, life-saving energy to escape a predator or survive a famine. Salt was critical for retaining water, keeping the nervous system firing, and maintaining muscle function. If our ancestors found a source of sugar or salt, their brains rewarded them with a massive hit of dopamine. That dopamine surge was the brain's way of saying, remember where you found this, and eat as much of it as possible, because it might save your life tomorrow.
So we are essentially walking around a modern world surrounded by neon-lit supermarkets and endless food delivery apps, but we are operating on prehistoric survival software.
That is the perfect way to describe it. Our hardware has not updated. We have taken an ancient nervous system that is hardwired to fiercely seek out rare nutrients, and we have dropped it into an environment of unlimited, highly engineered abundance. The equation has completely flipped, but our biological response remains exactly the same.
Let us dig into the mechanics of that response, specifically when we are under pressure, because cravings rarely hit when we are perfectly relaxed on a beach. They hit after a terrible day at work, or during a financial crisis, or when we are running on 3 hours of sleep. What exactly is the stress connection here?
Stress is the ultimate trigger for this entire loop. When you experience chronic stress, whether that is from a looming deadline, an argument, or just the relentless pace of modern life, your adrenal glands pump out cortisol. Cortisol is an emergency hormone. It alters how your body regulates glucose, it heightens your appetite, and it completely changes your energy allocation. Your nervous system believes you are under physical threat. It does not know the difference between a stressful email and a charging tiger. All it knows is that you need rapid metabolic reassurance.
It is bracing for impact.
Precisely. And what is the fastest way to get that reassurance? Sugar provides an immediate spike in blood glucose and a rush of dopamine. Salt helps stabilize blood volume and adrenal function. When you reach for those foods during a stressful moment, your body is interpreting them as emergency stabilizers. It is a form of metabolic self-regulation.
That is absolutely fascinating. So when someone says they are eating their feelings, they are not really doing that at all. They are actually medicating their stress hormones. The body is feeling a chemical chaos and is reaching for the fastest available tool to force a state of calm.
Yes, and that brings us to the amygdala, the brain's emotional command center. The amygdala is constantly scanning your environment for threats. When you are stressed, it lights up. But when you consume highly palatable foods rich in sugar, salt, and fat, you activate ancient reward pathways that send a massive signal of safety back to the amygdala. For a brief, fleeting moment, the nervous system calms down. The threat seems to vanish.
But it is a trap, isn't it? Because the brain is a learning machine. If eating a glazed donut or a handful of salty fries turns off the panic alarm, the brain is going to take notes.
It takes very detailed notes. The nervous system learns incredibly fast. The sequence becomes hardwired. Stress appears, the craving triggers, the food is consumed, and temporary relief washes over you. Over time, this loop becomes neurologically reinforced. The brain literally begins to associate these specific, nutrient-poor foods with emotional survival.
It is like building a superhighway in the brain where the only destination is the pantry. But I want to pivot to something you mentioned earlier about salt because I think people understand the sugar rush, but the salt craving is a bit more mysterious. Sometimes I do not want chocolate. I want the saltiest thing I can find. Is there a hidden physiological deficit driving that?
Absolutely. And it is one of the most overlooked aspects of nutritional psychology. We have to talk about mineral depletion. Modern lifestyles are incredibly draining on our electrolyte reserves. Chronic stress, sleep deprivation, drinking too much caffeine, or even just the baseline anxiety of modern living burns through our body's mineral stores. Sodium, potassium, and magnesium are the electrical conductors of the body. They are required for your nerves to fire, for your heart to beat, and for your cells to produce energy.
So when the body is depleted of these electrical conductors, it sends out a distress flare.
Yes, and that distress flare often manifests as a craving for salt. But here is the tragedy of modern nutrition. The body is chemically crying out for high-quality trace minerals to rebuild its electrical system, but the mind interprets that signal through the lens of modern convenience. So instead of seeking out mineral-rich, hydrating foods, we grab heavily processed potato chips. We give the body the sodium it asked for, but it comes packaged with refined oils and empty calories without any of the balancing magnesium or potassium.
It is like the check engine light comes on in your car, and instead of fixing the engine, you just smash the light with a hammer. The immediate symptom goes away, but the underlying depletion is still there.
That is a brilliant analogy. And it perfectly describes the glucose roller coaster, which is the other half of this vicious cycle. Let us say you give in to the sugar craving. You eat the sweet treat. Your blood sugar rockets upward. In response, your pancreas panics and releases a massive surge of insulin to clear that glucose out of your bloodstream.
And what goes up must come down.
Violently. Your blood sugar crashes. And when blood sugar drops too low, the brain registers that as a literal life or death emergency. You experience fatigue, brain fog, irritability, and crucially, a brand new, intensely powerful craving for more sugar to fix the crash. You have not solved the problem. You have just reset the trap. The craving becomes biologically self-perpetuating.
We are essentially held hostage by our own blood chemistry. But we also have to acknowledge that there is an external force at play here. It is not just our ancient biology acting up, it is the fact that our food environment has been weaponized against us.
That is a harsh word, but it is scientifically accurate. The modern processed food industry understands everything we are talking about today, and they use it. We are not just eating food anymore, we are consuming highly engineered edible products. Food scientists spend billions of dollars calculating the exact bliss point, the perfect mathematical ratio of salt, sugar, fat, and crunch designed to maximize reward signaling in the brain.
They are essentially hacking the amygdala.
They are completely bypassing our natural satiety signals. In nature, you rarely find foods that are high in both sugar and fat. An apple has sugar, but no fat. A nut has fat, but no sugar. But a modern pastry? It has massive amounts of both, plus refined salt. When that hits the human tongue, it delivers a sensory payload that our prehistoric circuitry simply cannot handle. The dopamine hit is so unnaturally high that our impulse control networks in the prefrontal cortex just shut down.
It makes you realize how unfair the concept of willpower really is. We are asking people to use sheer mental force to fight off millions of years of evolutionary survival programming, which is simultaneously being exploited by billion-dollar food laboratories. It is a rigged game.
It is entirely rigged, which is why trying to fight a craving with willpower alone almost always fails. You cannot outthink a biological survival signal.
So how do we break the loop? If willpower is a myth and our biology is being hijacked, how do we actually find freedom from these compulsive cycles? How do we rebuild our metabolic stability?
By changing the conversation we are having with our nervous system, you have to convince your body that it is safe. And you do not do that with restrictive diets or punishing fasting regimens, which actually just create more stress. You do it by creating physiological stability. It starts with blood glucose. Eating meals built around high-quality protein, healthy fats, and fiber creates a slow, steady release of energy. When your blood sugar is a gentle rolling hill instead of a violent roller coaster, the panic signals stop.
You are taking the emergency away.
Exactly. But it goes deeper than just macros. It is about deep hydration and mineral sufficiency. It is about prioritizing sleep, because just one night of poor sleep severely compromises your brain's ability to regulate insulin and impulse control. It is about managing the psychological stress load so your cortisol levels can finally drop. When your physiology becomes stable, your nervous system stops craving chaos.
That is a profound way to look at it. The cravings soften when the body finally feels biologically safe. It is almost like we have to parent our own nervous systems back to a state of calm.
We do, and I think this points to a massive revolution in how we will approach health in the near future. We are moving away from the era of guessing and into the era of continuous biological decoding.
You are talking about the rise of health intelligence and wearable technology.
Yes. Right now, we have continuous glucose monitors, wearable devices that track heart rate variability, sleep architecture, and stress loads in real time. Soon, AI-driven nutrition systems will be able to look at your biometric data and tell you exactly why you are having a craving before you even reach for the pantry.
Imagine an AI looking at your data and saying, you do not need a chocolate bar, your core body temperature dropped, your magnesium is depleted from yesterday's workout, and your cortisol is peaking. Drink this specific mineral broth and go to sleep.
That is exactly where we are heading. We will stop viewing emotional eating as a moral failure or a psychological defect. We will start seeing it purely as biological data. The body is constantly communicating its internal state through our behaviors and our urges. The problem has never been the body. The problem is that we forgot how to translate the language it is speaking.
It is a language of survival, written in the chemistry of salt, sugar, and stress. And for so long, we have been fighting the symptom instead of listening to the message.
Because deep inside the architecture of the brain, emotion and metabolism became intertwined millions of years ago. You cannot separate how you feel from how your cells are functioning. True freedom from cravings does not come from locking the refrigerator or white-knuckling your way through the night. It comes from radical biological empathy.
Radical biological empathy. I love that. It reframes everything. Perhaps the cravings that have haunted us were never truly about the food at all. Perhaps they were just desperate signals from exhausted biology, searching in the dark for a little bit of stability, a little bit of safety.
And once we learn to provide that safety internally, the external compulsions simply fade away. We stop fighting our biology and we finally start cooperating with it.
The body's always speaking. We just have to be quiet enough and intelligent enough to listen to what lies beneath the craving itself.
Exactly. The chemistry of the human body holds the answers if we are willing to decode them.